Hi everyone, welcome to this channel. Today I have for you Annemieke van Repingen from Belgium. Annemieke is a physician, a psychologist, and a horse-assisted coach. So she works with horses on a therapeutic level. She has written 3 wonderful books on the subject, and I've been working with her for a number of years, combining astrology with horse-assisted coaching. Hi Annemieke, how are you?
Hi, Levi. I'm good. Thank you. Very happy to be here.
It's great to have you. Annemieke and I are going to organize a weekend workshop in August 10th and 11th in Belgium, combining astrology and horse-assisted coaching. We're also going to organize a retreat in France, in Normandy. I wanted to have Annemieke on, of course, to share some of her knowledge about the horses and to talk a little bit what people can expect. Well, first of all, Annemieke, I would like you to talk a little bit about how you got into working with horses as a physician, right? As someone with a classical medical background. Can you share a little bit about that?
I've been passionate about horses my whole life. I've been passionate about people at the same time too. So that's the reason why I studied psychology in the first place and then medicine, because I wanted to find out how people can be healthy, what they can do to stay healthy or to cure themselves. What I found out mainly through these studies is what sickness is. I found out what kind of diseases there are and how to treat them as a classical psychologist or physician. But I still didn't know how to stay healthy, right? And that's what I learned from horses. And so they were in my life most of the time. And I personally learned a lot from them, especially with my own first horse. He was a difficult horse, but it appeared that I still had a lot to learn on the subject and on leadership in my life. So having had these experiences, having learned that much and finding out about the possibility of giving therapy with horses, it all came together for me. That was my path. That's why I started looking for trainings to be able to do this in a very good way, in a way that was that had a basic solid foundation. Mm-hmm. And so here we are, 10 years later.
Now, in your first book, you write about a lot of experiences that you have with your clients and how, people change through working with the horses. You also mentioned often that 80% of your clients that you get in your medical practice would actually be better off with some, horse coaching.
Yeah. First of all, I think what I would like to explain is that people, when they come to the medical practice, they often come with physical symptoms. They often come with some of their symptoms that for them stand out as the most annoying one or the one they are worried about the most. And they often come to me to find out about what is causing this symptom and what can I do about it. Or actually, I should say, what can you do about it? Referring to me, right? They would love me to have their solution for them. By giving them some kind of pill or treating the problem. The thing is, if you start treating symptoms, sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. But if we start doing that, we don't actually get to the root of the problem, which means that if you treat one symptom and the problem is not treated, it will come up some other way. There will be another symptom coming up because the system is still not healed, is still not cured. And in the work with the horses, that's what we do. And I think with astrology, we do that too. That's where we heal the system in a holistic way, which is not treating it in a superficial way or for only some aspects of it. And that's what the work with the horses does.
I would like you to give some example of how horses can impact people's processes. Can you give an example of a case?
Kirsten had a burnout when she first came to us. She came to the practice feeling totally exhausted and being very worried about it and not being able to work anymore. So we diagnosed burnout in her case. And so one of the sessions with the horses, it was with Phoebus, one of my horses. She was in the arena with Phoebus, and the idea was that she would get into contact with him and take him from one place in the arena to another place. That's one of the interactions that we do. By the way, we never mount them. We always stay on the ground with the horses. So she gets into the arena And Phoebus is just nibbling on some grass that is in there. So she grabs a piece of grass and tries to feed him this grass, thinking, obviously he likes to eat grass, so maybe I can get his attention by giving him some grass. Phoebus kind of ignores her and just continues eating the grass that's right in front of him. He doesn't need her to give the grass, right? So she's trying another approach. She's thinking, maybe he likes me to give him some strokes, to touch him in a gentle way. I would think horses like that, so let me try that. She's actually, what she's doing is she's trying to please him, to get him to pay attention to her, and maybe in the end follow her. So she tries to touch him, and he moves away, not interested, not paying any attention any further on. So now she's kind of out of ideas. She doesn't have any experience with horses, as most of our clients do, which is not necessary at all, by the way. So she's out of ideas. She doesn't know any other way to please him anymore. And she's just standing there, being who she is, just being there. And in that moment, Phoebus comes to her and follows her. Mm-hmm. So this had quite an impact for her, because on two levels. First of all, she realized that she was trying to please him, and that was her pattern. That was the way she was interacting with people in general too, or one of the ways, which led to exhaustion, because it's very exhausting to try to please everybody around you. It's not even possible. And it was her way of showing worth somehow. So she realized that. And she realized it didn't work. And second of all, she realized that when she was just being who she was, that was enough. That was right in that moment. The horse was interested in her, wanted to be with her, and wanted even to follow her. So that had a huge impact on her and on how she behaved in the future and how she was feeling in the future.
Was it experienced by her in that moment for example, as an energetic release, or did she understand, or you probably talked with her about it and kind of brought it more to conscious awareness? So on what level does the work with horses happen?
Yeah, I think all the levels you mentioned, it happens on all these levels. So of course there's a behavioral part where you experience what the impact is of your behavior, and you get feedback on that. That's one level. That's the most superficial level. The other level is, like you said, the emotional, energetic level. Horses connect with you on that level in a very big way, and so they move things on that level too for you. So there is movement in the moment already, even sometimes without you realizing it. The impact is already there. And then the other part where it's impacting you is your body. Because of the movement of energy, of emotion, there are things happening in your body. You experience it with your body because you're actually physically doing stuff. It's not only talking about it, it's doing, it's experiencing. So on all these levels, changes happen in the moment. And of course, we talk about it so that it can be understood and it can be translated to the daily life, and we look for ways on how to make that concrete and work with it in the future. But it's the experience in itself has a huge impact. People never forget those experiences, and they kind of pop up whenever they need them. They come back to their consciousness. In 2016, my first book came out. It's called Your Horsepower. It talks about how to become a leader in your own life and how to lead others in the end, maybe too, depending on the roles you're in and the work you're doing. The second book I wrote is an ebook about burnout, which followed actually pretty directly from the first one, because if you don't take care of yourself, you end up with a lot of trouble. And one of the syndromes that we deal a lot with in our modern society is burnout, as a lot of people have experienced, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. So I wrote a little ebook about how to what are the symptoms and how can you deal with those, and how the horses come into that story, because it's not that obvious. How can horses help with that? But they do in a very powerful way. And the third book is really about leadership, and that's work which it's actually very exciting at this point because the manuscript just went out to the editors.
Why horses? Why not cows or pigs?
Horses are great to do this work with, and there are different reasons. The main reason is they are prey animals, so that means that in nature they are preyed upon, and they have been living in a herd on this earth for many years, millions of years, much longer than we are living on this earth actually, and they have survived because they are living in a herd. Mm-hmm. So they work together, they are in a constant interaction with each other for survival, and that means they are looking for authentic leaders that can keep them safe all the time with each other. But when they interact with people, they do the same. They are looking for safety and security. So in order to be able to give them the safety and the security, we need to be authentic, real, and we need to step into leadership. If I would summarize them in one phrase, I would say, stand in your power. Be who you are and stand in your power. That's the journey they want to take us on. And when you interact with them, they kind of show us the next step to take each time you meet them.
I'm thinking about, usually it's the other way around. Usually human beings really train horses to an amazing state of control. But here we're talking about a completely different relationship, right?
Yeah, exactly. And what we're actually asking from the horse is that he's just a horse, and he's what we allow the horse to do is to respond the way he would respond even if he would not be around us. He's just being who he is, or she's just being who she is, and not in a controlled or conditioned way. It's she or he will react from his or her intuition and from her feelings and what they need from you. And that makes things clearer for you. It's a very natural way of being.
Yeah, of course, I've worked with you and the horses for some years now. It's a magical way of offering some therapy. Also, working with animals, for some people it can open up certain things on certain levels that they haven't experienced before.
Horses are very clear about boundaries, and if you're not, you will know from them. They will show you that you're not, and they will show you how you can become clear, and translating that to your daily life is a very interesting exercise.
I know you also do team buildings with people, with leaders, right? Mm-hmm. With CEOs and so on. So it's of course, I was also able to witness that, which is quite amazing to see how humbling an experience it can be. What is your experience with astrology? Why are we combining astrology and horse-assisted coaching?
To be honest with you, if you would have told me years ago that I would do a workshop or a weekend or a retreat combining astrology and horse-assisted coaching, I would have called you crazy. But here we are, and we are doing it, and it's great because I think what drove me into this combination, let's say, is the experience I had myself with astrology. With you, of course, you were the one introducing it to me. There is a connection with horse-assisted coaching that I could feel immediately, because the way that I experienced astrology was that it also was working on this subconscious level. It's somehow through the explanations, through looking at the symbols, through hearing what you were telling me, there was a message coming through on a different level than just the conscious or cognitive one. Yes. And that's the same thing that happens with horses. And so that was one thing. The other was by hearing it through the lens of astrology, let's call it like that. Yeah. The way you describe things and patterns made it much clearer for me. There was a clarity that wasn't there before. There was a clarity about what's happening now and the clarity about what was possible in the future, which gave me peace. Yes. Which gave me room, space to search, to experiment, to look for my way.
It's a great diagnostic tool, but it's more than that. And I think when we lay out the charts and we talk about the north and south node, for example, which is the path that the consciousness is evolving towards, right? Which is important. Everything is under that. And if you talk about these nodal positions to people, it always hits them really clearly. There's no mistake about it. I mean, that's my experience with it, at least. Then being able to work further with that information and really bring it into practice, like moving, because we're walking with the horses. And it's not mounting horses, as you mentioned, but it's really moving with the horses. And it's a completely different perspective, a different experience. And I think the fact that we have both experiences enriches the whole setup. It gives us two angles to look at the same problem, or, I mean, not necessarily a problem, but when we work through something, when people are, I've seen it so many times, when people are blocked, or they feel, like you mentioned, we worked with burnout people, which is really an emotional stagnation, or people can just don't feel they can express themselves for who they truly are, which is 90% of all burnout cases, or they're just stuck in financial situations and so on. Often it's a difficult thing to get out of, but I think these tools are really powerful in allowing us to access a part of the mind, that subconscious mind, which has the answers in them, right? It's much more powerful than what we can consciously think of or even control. And so it's all about letting control go and learning how to surrender to that. And I think the astrology and the horses are a very effective way of facilitating that process.
On the one hand, we see a lot of people who have what we would call blind spots, obstacles or challenges or stuff that is in their way that keeps them from moving, that they aren't even aware of, which is, like you say, in the subconscious or unconscious. And working with astrology and horses makes those blind spots clear, brings them into the light, and so workable. You can work with them once they're in the light. That's one thing. And the other thing I also experienced in all these years is that sometimes people tell me, like, yeah, I knew that was a problem for me, that was blocking me, or that was standing in my way, but I never realized the impact of it. I never realized how did it stand in my way. And working with the horses makes that very obvious.
When doing astrology, people pay for an hour or 90 minutes or 2 hours, and then you have some time to really probe into certain aspects of their life. But then also, after that, it's up to them, of course. There has to be something else to kind of work with that. I'm very delighted and happy because I can express that with another discipline, which is, now what we're doing with the horses, because I see it really having an impact. There's more and more people with all these psychological sensitivities, let's say, like burnout, for example, which you just can't, give them some antidepressants. And sometimes it's great that there is antidepressants, but, in many cases, it's not really necessary. We're going to have our first weekend on August 10th and 11th. Of this year, right, 2019, the retreat in France. We're working on the dates there because we need to transport the horses. We're in the process of making that really concrete. So 10 and 11th of August, it's going to be in Belgium. People can find all the practical details on our websites. I'm going to put the link of your website in the description. So what is your website, Annemieke, for people who just want to take a quick look?
It's www.kivik, which is KIVIK.eu. That's the website.
Yeah, they can also check your books there, and if they want to have a consultation with you, you do your consultations where you live. Thank you very much, Annemieke, for being here on my channel, for explaining this, and I'm really looking forward to our collaboration once again.
Yeah, thank you too. It was great to be here. Thanks for giving me the opportunity, and talk to you soon.